How's your morning been?
My morning's been great, yes.
Where'd you fly from last night?
Flew from Sydney, so not far at all. But it's beautiful and sunny. Last night it was rainy. It's nice now.
And you said you're saying you're getting hay fever as well.
Oh my gosh. The first time in my life that I've actually had hay fever has been this year. And it's so strange that it's come, later in life. But apparently it can start at any time.
I've been having like a dry throat for like the last week. And
I think just Melbourne in general. It's the weather here isn't. You just experience everything in general.
I know, it's very different, isn't it?
It is true.
So Sammy, we asked our guests the same question. So what are you watching or listening to that you can recommend to our listeners?
Oh, do you know what? Watching, I've just finished, I'm up to date with Power.
Oh.
That's the new show that I've been into.
Is it the one with the 50 Cent?
Yeah.
The 50 Cent? Yeah.
What's that
Someone
about?
got me into it. It's really good. It's about, it's kind of about these drug dealers.
Right, yeah.
And that life, but they're also one of them's kind of trying to get out of it, but they can't. They get pulled back into that life. So it's really interesting. It's set in New York City and I love New York so much. So I'm watching that. Listening to, oh gosh, I'm the worst with that because I listen to a lot of older kind of music.
What's your favourite decade?
Oh, tough question. I love my 90s R&B.
Yes, yeah.
Of course, but I actually love the 50s. I really, really love music from around that time.
No one has ever said the 50s before.
Is that Aretha Franklin's time or just a little bit before?
Yeah, Aretha, she had some moments of that in that time. Yeah, I just love when I am at home and I'm cooking and have a glass of wine. That's the kind of music I put on.
Yes, yeah.
Takes me to a nice place.
Is there anyone in the 50s that you want to be? Oh, you would want to be?
I mean, anyone in that time. I love that era. I just love the clothing as well. I love the pencil skirts and the beautiful shirts.
Is that the curly hair generation?
Yes, I love it. Yes, the Marilyn times.
So a lot of people do know is that you grew up in Perth as well. So what were you like as a child growing up?
I think if you ask my parents, they would say I was a good girl, but I was annoying. I was always singing, always.
Just like Tom. Oh my God, I have to keep telling him to be quiet.
Oh, there you go.
Because I sing pretty loud in the bathroom and it just echoes around the whole house.
Well, I don't blame you. I always just loved music. I love to sing. I love to always be, doing some kind of a show. And I do feel like, that's when you do know that someone's probably going to pursue something like music because it was just in me from a very young age. And it was influenced from my parents because my mum was a dancer. And so I think that she was always, kind of up for putting on music and dancing around the house.
That's when you got your modelling side as well when you started.
Yeah, exactly. But I loved music. It always did something to me. When I listened to songs, they took me to a place. And I think that that's my love of music comes from a very, very young age.
Yes. Is Perth like a really music city and entertainment is like Melbourne, or is it like...
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of incredible musicians that come from Perth, but I do think you have to leave. I do. Industry-wise, I think the industry is more Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah.
And growing up in, you've come from actually quite a diverse culture as well. Not a lot of people know your dad is actually Anglo-Indian as well.
Yeah.
Did that also have any part into the music side as well? Or?
Definitely. I feel like that my mum, my brothers and I are first generation Australians. So my dad was born in Bombay, and my mum was born in Glasgow in Scotland. So they both moved to Australia, and then we, obviously first generation. So I do think that that's influenced a lot. And my family's all, it's different food, it's different accents, it's different languages, and I think that's really amazing, and I love that, and I really, my culture is very, very important to me.
And your mum's Scottish, right?
Yeah.
So which identity, like culture, have you identified most with, like growing up? Because you're obviously Australian, you're born here.
I am.
But, yeah.
I don't know, it's a tough question. My mum's family are actually mostly in Scotland, so my dad's family all moved over. So I would say probably that side of my family was exposed to a little bit more. Grew up eating curries and chili and loving coriander, and all my family have Indian accents. We had an Indian Santa. We had curry on Christmas Day.
Oh, that's nice.
That's just all I've known. And then, I didn't know that I was the only white cousin.
Oh, really?
I was the only white cousin in my whole family, and they would call me my white cousin, and I just didn't even know what that meant until I got older.
Same as me, because I'm the only cousin that lives in Australia. Everyone else lives in Cambodia.
There you go.
They call me the Australian cousin, and they call me white as well. Actually,
isn't that funny? And because you obviously children, you don't know that growing up. You don't know what that is. And then I even remember the first time I realised my parents were different colours because I never knew as a child. And I remember seeing my dad. I was actually in school in primary. I was in preschool, and I remember my dad came to pick me up. And the whole class started going, stranger danger, because we had just learnt about stranger.
Yep.
And I was like, that's my dad.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I remember my dad saying, no, that's just what they think. That doesn't matter. That's just that's what they see.
Has he kind of seen a bit of a transition?
He has, because he had a lot to deal with when he first moved to Australia. But yeah, he I mean, my dad's the most understanding and kind human in the entire world. So yeah,
has he always been really, I guess, like a central role in music for you as well, like pushing you out to go and pursue music?
Yes, my mum and dad were those people. I was very lucky because my dad actually was a incredible football player, and he played for the Colts, which is kind of before you get into the Eagles, like the West Coast Eagles, which is a big AFL team. And he was kind of not, he didn't pursue that dream. And then my mum was a ballerina, and she could have actually, she was asked to go to the Russian ballet, which is kind of, as a ballerina, the, big point. And she didn't do it. And they both were happy in their lives, but they both were like, we want to push our children.
Right, to give you that opportunity that they never kind of took from you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they always were behind me 110% and, drove me to every rehearsal and always said to me, you can do this, and picked me back up again.
You know what you made me realise? I realised I don't know what my parents wanted to be when they were younger.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I would suggest you ask, because it's something that you can't ask when they're gone. So it's very important to know those things to then tell your children.
And fast forward to your parents bring you to rehearsals. We're doing a bit of research online. We found out your friend sent a demo to the producers in LA. Is that correct?
That is,
and
yes.
And this is pre-MySpace days, pre-Facebook days.
Yeah.
How did it get to them?
Like, I would imagine even uploading a file would take like 2 years.
Oh my God. And it used to be like the dial-up thing where, the phone lines, and the phone didn't work when the internet did.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Making me feel old. Yes, that was kind of how it happened. So I always loved to sing, My family, my extended family were all in bands. And so I would get up and just sing at family parties. And then one of my cousins were like, actually, you're quite good. I think we should get you into a studio. They knew a girl who had a studio. I went and recorded a demo, and then that demo was taken, to LA. It's so crazy.
That demo gets sent to LA?
Yeah, so I think, like in a CD form in the mail.
With the stamp and everything.
Yeah, FedEx was back then, and got sent. And and then it kind of did the rounds of, going to labels. And then I do remember getting that call, and they were saying, we'd love for you to come over to the States and audition kind of for us. And my mum was like, sorry, she's in school. And I was like, oh my God, Mum, it's so rude. Because I think that I had no idea. She's like, listen, you need to finish school. That's just as important. So we went in the school holidays, which was 4 weeks, over to LA, and I recorded, and that's when it all kind of kicked off.
What was it like getting that call to saying that they want to fly you to LA?
I mean, for me, I was 15, so I just thought, this is how it happens. Oh, great, well, I'll be famous next. That's just, you know what I mean? Like, I had no concept of what it was really, really like. And I think my parents didn't really either on that scale, but they obviously were adults and they understood life. So they were like, oh, okay. They just didn't want me to get ahead of myself and expect things.
So you got the call, and then they were like, no, actually just finish school first. Don't go to LA. Is that what they said to you?
Yeah, they were like, listen, it's very important that you finish school. It's very important that we stick together as a family, and your morals and all of those things. And I think they had heard some things about LA, the classic Hollywood stories. So they came with me. My mum came with me everywhere. And then when I got my record deal with Jive Records, which was a few years later, my mum and dad were there. They came with me, and my brothers.
So who lived in LA with you? Was it
Mum, Dad, TJ, Alex, and me?
The whole
family.
For you.
Yeah, which was so insane. I mean, look, it was the days of very big budgets of record deals, but we made that move, and my family were like, we have to stick together, because we didn't want to be torn apart. We're very, very close.
So what did your parents while in LA, were they working another job or anything to support you, or were they fully
My
with you at
mum,
every rehearsal?
yeah, well, my dad was kind of doing schooling for my brothers because my brothers didn't want to go to an American school because it's a bit different, and they were, I think, a year either ahead or behind. It's a bit different. So my dad would homeschool them, so he kind of became a teacher, kind of, and my mum would travel with me. She was kind of like personal management. So yeah,
She was the original momager.
Yeah,
Yep.
she was, exactly.
And so during this period of, working in LA for pretty much 8 years, did you find that, living in Australia, then moving to LA, what was kind of the difference in your lifestyle?
I mean, it's just such a different city, and I think Perth's obviously a lot smaller, but it's a different. America's a different beast. It's a different culture. It's a different place, and I had to learn. I had to learn balance. I think that's something we have here. We really nail that, and I think over there, when you're in the industry, balance is the biggest lesson of coming home and going, oh, I'm gonna unload the dishwasher, or I'm going to wash the dishes, or I'm going to do the washing, like having chores that you still do, because you do think, well, I'm a singer now, you know what I mean? And it's very easy for ego to take over, but my parents were very, very adamant about that not happening.
Yes. And working in that environment, you probably had the opportunity to work with a lot of kind of A-list producers, singers as well.
Yeah.
And you on Shark Tale, you wrote for Shark Tale as well.
Yeah.
What were the pressures, I guess, from the entertainment point of view? Did you have to kind of act a certain way, or even behave a certain way, or just...
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's such a encompassing industry. It takes over your mind because all you want to do is impress people, right? Because you're thinking, if I impress that person, I'm going to move up the ladder, and that's ultimately what everybody wants. And so you are trying to be the perfect human, and that's soul destroying, you know what I mean? So I think that in the beginning it was a little bit like that, and I had to my mom, thank God my parents were there. I think if they weren't, it would be a very different person sitting here right now. They were very, very hands-on, and my mum used to always remind me, if you're not happy in this, we're going home. You have to stay happy and loving it for the love of music, and obviously business is always going to collide, but you have to love music. That's why you came here in the first place. But I remember one time that really changed me and shaped me, I think, was I went into a meeting, and I was 16 at the time. I'd just been signed, and I had a bit of, I was wearing these really tight, when really low jeans were in, which was a terrible time for everybody. And they were really, really low, and I remember I was wearing a little tank top, and I had like a little roll over my jeans, right? 16 years old. And I remember the guy going, we need to get her in the gym. We need to get her abs like Britney and Janet Jackson. Yeah. And they were showing me videos of Britney and Janet Jackson who had like 20,000 abs, And I have had a complex about my stomach from then my whole life until I would say in the last few years. Isn't that crazy? And that's the thing. You don't know that you're shaping these kids in such a way that it's going to affect them forever. And it's like they forget you're only 16 years old at that point in time as well. Yes! Oh my gosh.
There's kind of pressure to kind of make it, I guess, when I look at it from that perspective, there's an expiration date, especially for female pop stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that was the thing, is that they were like, you're 16, so we need to get it done now. And so long story short, but I was dropped at 21. So for me, I was like, my life's over. What am I going to do now? So yeah, it's a really tough industry, and it truly is a hard place to be. LA, if you're not killing it, it's a really tough place to be.
Was there any moments during that 8-year process, even before you were broke up with the label? Was there any point before then you're like, I just want to go home now? Like, I've had enough.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I did go home at one point, because I remember saying to my mum and dad, like, I don't know. I'm starting to not know how to do this with love. I'm doing it as a job, and I'm losing every time I go on stage. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
Did you kind of lose the passion?
Yeah,
for it?
I was losing the passion. Didn't know. I was nervous about how I dressed. I was nervous about how I looked. They had me get braces, and I had them tightened. You're supposed to have your braces tightened every month. I had them tightened every week.
Wow.
Because they wanted to speed up the process. So I was in constant pain.
Coming from a dental background, that's
Excruciating.
It's so bad for your bones.
Yeah, and in my head, I would have a headache because of that, because, it's all connected. Yeah, so it was just like I was just put, under the pump a little bit. And my mum said, let's go home. So we actually did. We went home for I took a month off and went home. But the thing is that I remember coming back and it was like, all right, you've taken a month off. We've got to.
Right, get you up to speed again.
Yeah.
So talk us through the process. It's like, you pretty much, people around you were telling you you're going to be the most famous person in the world. You're going to have money. You're going to go and tour like Britney. You're pretty much going to live this luxury lifestyle. And then suddenly when you're 21, it's all got taken away from you.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So what exactly happened?
Oh, it was tough. It was tough. You know what? It was hard for me because at the time I was like, exactly, I believed it all. And over there, everything's bigger, everything's better. And I was also working with my heroes. I was signed to a label that I would have, died to be signed to. I mean, the best pop label in the world at the time was Jive. Britney Spears, like names like that I grew up watching. That was insane, so for me there was no higher. So that's what was hard, because once I was dropped, I thought, that's kind of as high as you can go. You know what I mean? So I lost a lot of my drive. I went through a really intense period of a lot of anxiety, and I think depression in a very light form, but I went through a lot and I needed to come home, but I didn't, because my family had moved back, because obviously the funds were gone, and my brothers actually were starting high school. So my parents were like, we should put them in an Australian high school, because they were petrified of American ones. They were like, there's guns in America, we need to get out of here.
To be fair, I wouldn't go there either.
Which I get. I was like, absolutely, let's go to a normal little Australian Perth school. And we came home, they came home, and I was there kind of on my own, still trying. And anyway, I'd lost my deal and I was going around. I'd built up the courage to go into meetings again. And meetings are a whole other thing, because you have 10 or 15 minutes to impress somebody. And so you're going in and you're like, hey, this is it. I've got to sell myself, which I think Australians are really bad at, because we're just not those people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that tall poppy syndrome.
And we're self-deprecating, and that's just how we get around, and I love that about Aussies. Anyway, so I remember going into this one meeting, and I'd really, really gone and got a little outfit from H&M, and I was feeling great. And I walked in and we played songs, and the guy's going, this is great. Yeah, wow, I love this. He goes, I remember you from back in the day. I've always loved your voice. I've always thought you were great. I was like, oh my God, thanks. And then he goes, the only thing about this with you is you don't have a star tone. He goes, you got a great voice, but you just
What does a star tone even sound like?
I have no idea. I was like, what does that mean? He goes, you're a great singer, but it's not memorable. And that was the day I packed up and I left. I was like, I literally that next day booked a flight. I was like, I'm done.
Were you working independently, right? Or were
So for me, I was like, oh my God, like I've just built up all this courage, and that within 1 second, that guy, he ruined it for me. He took everything away. So that's when I came home and then started kind of looking into what I was going to do.
When you came back home, what did mum and dad say?
They were like, listen, like whatever you want to do is what we will back. They've always been like that. But they said, I think it's time. I was 25, so I'd been there for a very long time. And I think that they got to the point too, they were sick of seeing me so up and down and upset. Did
they just like, okay, maybe you should look at getting a normal job? Did they say that to you?
No, they never did. I was like that. I was
really
like,
good.
Maybe it's retail. But they were like, no, you should still sing, but why don't you try Australia? And I was like, oh yeah. I'd never thought about that, because I kind of skipped Australia. I kind of started in America. So I was like, that's a great idea. And I'd kind of done my research, and I saw that the people that I admired in Australia had all come from TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we know the infamous story, like you auditioned for X Factor, you worked your ass off, you got to the top, you won. So
Yeah.
congratulations again.
Thank you.
And now that you're an independent artist yourself, I do realize that there is a bit of a scar when you think about LA. Do you kind of associate that there's a bit of like trauma, a bit of PTSD when it comes to...
Oh, definitely. And I think, you know, that's something I struggle with still. And mental health is something that I'm so glad that we're really talking about these days. It's something that affects all of us, who, no matter who you are. And I think, I think it really left a very deep scar. And I was so young and impressionable. But I'm truly grateful, and I can only say this now at my age now, that actually it didn't happen for me then, because I think that now I can actually appreciate where I am and not go off the rails. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got a
100%.
sense of who I am and all of those things that I wouldn't have had then.
I also think like you learnt a lot from being in the industry as well. I feel like you can see it in your performance. You have that star power, that star tone.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it took a while, but I got it. Thank you.
Was there anything that you did differently once you were focusing on Australia? Was there anything that you did differently that you didn't do in America, or something that you brought over that you did?
I actually think it was just life's toll. I think that I was at the place where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be me. And Australia are very clever. The public here are extremely smart. They know exactly what to look for, and they like realness. And I think it was the best time and place. It just kind of was, you know, all married up. And I was at that place in my life, and it was for Australians, and it just worked.
And what kind of courage did it kind of take you to go back to LA to work with so many people to write your hit Bounce? Yeah,
it took me a while to go back, because every time I would land, and I would see the Welcome to Los Angeles walking down in those escalators, and you've got like an hour ahead of you for customs, I would always get anxiety, crippling, like hardcore in my chest, because I'd be like, oh no, because it just was such a dark place for me. And that was for years. And so I feel like this time when I was writing this record and I was finally ready to tackle some of those issues, I wanted to start my writing process in the place that did that to me, and kind of put a new stamp on it, because now I'm in a much better place.
Kind of like reclaimed LA as well.
I did for myself, So, and that felt really nice. And when I went back, this time it was a totally new experience. It was really, really fun. And Bounce, I think the excitement behind Bounce is that it is really positive and really happy, and you kind of can hear that in just the track.
Can I just ask a question, totally random, but like, what's it like being a pop star in Australia? Because I feel like Australians have this weird thing where they don't want to support their local artists.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you feel that, don't you?
Look, we have a tall poppy syndrome. Yeah. That's Australia. And I think there is a pressure. There is a weird pressure, but I think you just got to keep plugging along and just hoping that and that you stay in the industry. I think that that's the biggest thing for Australians, is that you have to keep going and keep showing different sides of yourself and stay real. And like I said, they're very smart as a public, so they know when you're being real, and they do support it.
And before we wrap up, what's one thing that you kind of have to do every day, no matter how busy you are?
One thing I have to do? Well, I'll give you two. I mean, coffee is my life. I need a coffee in the morning. Oh my God, it's the first thing I think of in the morning. Aside from this, when I wake up in the morning, and my mum taught me this, it was a really amazing little pearl of wisdom, is that when I wake up and I put, you get out of bed, you put your feet on the ground, say thank you, so that you start the day off being grateful and acknowledging that you're grateful for another day. And I truly do that every morning, and I do think that starts my day off in a very different way.
What happens if you don't do it?
I don't know, because I don't not do it.
Good answer. So what's one person that you wish you could follow on social media that doesn't have social media, dead or alive?
Oh, Jon Snow, easily. Jon Snow from Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
Kit Harington. And I have searched for him, and he does not have it.
What do you think he would be
Love
like?
him.
What do you think it would be like on Instagram?
I think he'd be so cool. I think he would just be the coolest person, and it would just be these weird, artsy, cool photos. Yeah, I'm obsessed with him. I love him.
That's great. And for one last question.
Yeah.
What's one song you wish you had written?
Oh my gosh, Perfect by Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that's such a good song.
I remember hearing that thinking, that is incredible because it's like a classic. It's like and it's very, I think, hard to write classics these days because so many things have been done. But that song is a classic to me. Like that's for me in the books with Unchained Melody and those
kind of
kind of
timeless,
songs.
isn't
It's
it?
timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would we be seeing kind of more of those acoustic sounds on your next coming album? Or?
Not on this one. This one's more
Full of bops.
fun. Yeah.
Summer
We're in the
bops.
club a little bit
Yeah.
on this one, while I can still be in the club. And then when I'm shoved out of the club, you'll be hearing those. Because I think
More the
that's
bar
my
music.
next,
Yes.
when I'm in a bar with a whiskey. No, but I think that's like the next kind of departure because I love a ballad. But I think that I need to be in a different place for that, to do that record.
When can we expect the album and next single?
The next single, I think next year, maybe, or maybe the end of this year. I'm looking for
For approval?
I'm not getting a nod. No, I'm not sure on the next single, but the album is definitely going to be next year. I'm thinking around my birthday in April.
Will you be touring as well?
100%. Oh my gosh, yes. And I did the best. I played the best venue here, the Prince, Prince Band Room in Melbourne, and I just loved it so much. So I can't wait to do that again.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much.
For all the chatting to you.
Thanks,
And
guys.
we're going to make sure that you release that album soon so we can start streaming it.
Oh,
yeah, I'm
done.
waiting for a Samantha Jade album.
Done. I'm ready for you to hear it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thanks. Thank you so
Oh, it was
much.
fun.